So now it is literally 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. First of all, thank you and welcome for coming to our public meeting. We really appreciate your time, and we definitely appreciate the feedback that you'll be giving us here tonight. My name is Kristen Veldhaus. I'll be facilitating this public meeting, so we're going to do a presentation, and then afterwards we'll have a question and answer session. Justin, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. Thanks, Kristen. I'd just like to echo Kristen's sentiment. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for giving us your input. I'm Justin Harlan. I'm a senior engineer for the City of Iowa City. I'm joined here tonight by our city engineer, Jason Havel, assistant city engineer, Scott Silvers, and our public works director, Ron Konecki. This project is a city-led project, but we've also partnered with the Iowa DOT and the University of Iowa. They're both stakeholders in the project. And without further ado, I'll hand it back over to Kristen.
Thank you very much. So welcome and introductions out of the way. Next up, we're going to do a safety moment briefly, just some guidelines for engagement, and we have some technical information we'll give you through the project schedule and background. That's when we'll take questions after that, and we'll just do a brief wrap-up before we have you go participate in our activities. So just a quick safety moment, emergency exit. If you're in the room, it's right up to the right of the screen. So very quickly, you can exit the building if you need to. The 911 caller is going to be Kim Hughes in the back. She just raised her hand, should we need that. CPR certified, Kim and I are certified, and raise your hand if you are as well. So we have several people in the room. Fantastic. The AED, if we need it, if you go back towards where the library is, just in front of the security sensors is where the AED is. The fire extinguisher, you have to go through the security sensors, and it's to the left by the elevator. And then restrooms, it's just go straight out the door you came through and turn left and then turn right, and they're just right there along with a drinking fountain. So just some guidelines for engagement. So the purpose of today's meeting truly is listening for feedback. We want to hear how you're using the bridge, what your concerns are. We want to hear information on your experience, your concerns, desires, etc. We are in a very, very, very early stage of this project. We have not started design. We're here for input before we put in the time and effort to start concepting out anything. So no design decisions have been made, and you're going to help us guide some of those design decisions to make sure that the solutions are functional, affordable, acceptable to the community. So with that, I will pass it off to Mike Keurig.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so here's the schedule that we have for this planning study. As Kristen mentioned before, we're in the very early stages right now. We're in the listening, information gathering stage before we even put pen to paper. Once we talk to all the stakeholders and gather all the information, we'll advance some concepts, start concept development, which is anticipated to start next month. After that, after we have some concepts down, we'll come back in a public meeting forum, give you guys a chance to look at the concepts that were developed, go through another round of feedback, and after that, kind of refine the concepts a little bit, and then advance finally at the end of this planning study with a single preferred concept that we would take into design. So then a little bit about the project background. Our planning study boundary is shown right there, basically goes from the field house to the Crandick Railroad tracks. Within our planning study, what we're going to be looking at is removal of the eastbound and westbound bridge and replacing that with a single bridge. We're going to be looking at multimodal and geometric improvements of the roadways, the intersections, the bridges, all within the project limits there. That also includes conversion of Melrose and Byington into two-way traffic. We'll also be looking at repair or replacement of the pedestrian bridges within the planning study. And then we'll also be evaluating for the possibility of modification or removal the Burlington Street Dam. So with that, at the end of that planning study, like I mentioned, we'll take that to a single preferred concept at the end of the study that will advance to design, seek outside funding, and go through the environmental clearance process. So a little bit of history about the structures here. The The eastbound bridge is owned by the city. That was constructed about 100 years ago. There was a previous study that said the bridge needed to be replaced, which is why we're here today talking to you. The westbound bridge is owned by the Iowa DOT. The pedestrian bridges have joint ownership and maintenance responsibility between the city, the DOT, and the university. And then the Burlington Street Dam was owned by, or is owned by, the university. So then just some area uses and some context. We understand that this is kind of a key corridor for you. The Burlington Street Bridge, the project area, really serves the community as a key connector. It's a really important area to get across the river as well. Used by all modes of traffic. So we've got hospital traffic, emergency service vehicles, students, residents, transit, bicyclists, you name it. They use this corridor, so we're taking all of that into context. And here to talk a little bit more about the traffic is Matt McLaughlin.
Thanks, Mike. The existing vehicle traffic data, average annual daily traffic is just over 22,000 vehicles a day. The Burlington Street Riverside intersection there is ranked in the top 15 in terms of the number of crashes at that intersection around the metro. And certainly, as we've looked at feedback and opportunities to improve this, the angles coming in, the skewed angles at that intersection, Burlington and Riverside, certainly some opportunities to make some of those better. In 2009, there was a traffic study that noted general traffic congestion around the University of Iowa West Campus, so just west of the Burlington Street Bridge, in and around the University of Iowa healthcare planned expansions, and that there was a need to balance pedestrians and bicycle modes with all the other vehicular modes in that area on Grand Avenue, Byington, and Melrose. And then in 2023, not too long ago, another study looked at potentially some sort of realignment of Grand Avenue and Byington Road to provide two-way traffic flow and improve intersections in that area, add bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, and then certainly maintain access for University of Iowa and CAMBUS campus transit, as well as Iowa City Transit. With that, just want to recognize the importance of this project area and corridor specific to transit routes. So this map here shows the Iowa City transit routes, the peak times, the headways, or how often buses come through every 15 minutes or every half an hour along those arrows and colors. And then can't forget about CAMBUS, the university, which has even more frequent headways there, more buses coming in and out there, as shown, several different routes, getting students to and from the dorms, campus, the gym, all that good stuff. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mindy to talk about some of the bike and pedestrian.
Thanks. Can I use this microphone? All right. So first I'm just going to kind of go over some of the existing conditions and some of the concerns, and I've heard some more concerns from some of you here tonight. So starting on the bridge itself, we have the paved pathways separated from the traffic on each side of the bridge. But even so, if you're walking there, it might still feel kind of stressful because there's a lot of traffic coming through, and it's loud, and you're still kind of stuck in this confined space. We have some bike lanes with a small buffer on them, so that's supposed to make it feel a little bit more comfortable for people biking. But again, there's a lot of traffic, so even if you're out there, it may not be as comfortable as it might be if you were more separated. So that's considered more of a moderate or high stress situation for people biking. Once we get moving a little bit west, we have the intersection with Riverside Drive. And I've heard from a lot of you tonight about some issues with that intersection. That being a stressful location. If you're on the trail going north and south, it's kind of stressful to cross at grade on the east side there. There's not really a crosswalk to cross east and west, so that's problematic. Instead, you have to take the overpass, which may be comfortable for most people, but it's not ADA compliant, and it's not really meant for people on bicycles. So if you are trying to take your bike up there, you might have some conflict with some pedestrians. And then as we continue west, we don't have bike facilities any longer. We do have some sidewalks for people walking. Some of those are more set back from the road, which is a little more comfortable. But then we have this issue where we have a lot of people walking, and it can actually impact vehicular traffic flow. So we have conflicts between sort of which modes should have priority at certain locations. I should also mention the intersection is kind of a crash cluster for vehicles and for people on bicycles. And this whole corridor, along Grand, across Burlington, is really envisioned to be more of a citywide connector. And so it's really an important connection from the west side to the downtown. And here's just a photo, sort of a bird's eye view of that overpass. That does get about 1,600 pedestrians per day, and as I mentioned, is not compliant with Americans with Disabilities Act, so it's really not accommodating everybody that might need to cross that street. So in 2017, the city did the Let's Get Rolling Bike Master Plan. Just kind of curious, how many of you were involved in that in some way? A little bit? A little bit? So that plan did set forth an overall vision to be a bike-friendly community for all ages and abilities. And that phrase, all ages and abilities, is really actually means something, which I'll talk about when we talk about stress levels. In that plan, they identified Burlington Bridge as having narrow bike facilities, being a high-stress environment, and that bike crash cluster that I mentioned. So they recommended a buffered bike lane, and to do that, to narrow some of the existing lanes on the bridge. And so now it does have those buffered bike lanes, but it's still a little bit of a high-stress situation. So speaking of stress, this is actually something that we measure. There is a methodology that was adopted over 10 years ago to assess the level of bicycle traffic stress. That methodology was updated just a couple of years ago because in the past decade, how we design bike facilities has changed. So it's really evolved over time. We had to update that methodology. So I'm going to start down there at the bottom. That's where we have the all ages and abilities network. So that means that this is comfortable for anyone who wants to bike, including children, including people with mobility disabilities who can still get on a bicycle. This is what your master plan says is the vision for the whole city. Then we have bike level of traffic stress 2, and this is what we call our interested but concerned population. And this is suitable for most adults. So about half, a little over half of all adults are interested in biking, if only something. If only they felt safer, if only they knew something more about their bike, there's something holding them back. And that percentage comes from a study that was done of major metropolitan areas across the United States. So it's kind of an average percentage based on adults in the US. And then we have, we get to bike level of traffic stress 3. This is our enthused and confident population. A lot of adults would be okay in this, but definitely not as many as the level 2. And then we have the strong and fearless population. These folks, they'd probably bike just right along Riverside Drive. They don't care there's no bike lane. They'll be out there with traffic. Sometimes I call them their spandex cowboys and cowgirls. They're just out there doing their thing. That's a very small percentage of the population. So basically, if we're trying to meet that vision of the master plan, we want everything to be green. And so we applied this methodology to the project area. The only place, according to that methodology, we're looking at traffic volume, distance from the travel lane, traffic speed. The only place that came up as all ages and abilities was along the Iowa River Corridor Trail. And then some of the other areas were more high stress. We did show an original map to the stakeholder working group that we've been working with, and we had a few lower levels on here, and they said, hold on a second, that is way more stressful than what your map is showing. And we said, well, okay, we will change it because the stress level is what you're feeling. That's more important than what this methodology says. So some of the areas that were orange got downgraded to red, and were recognized as more of a stressful location. So when you're looking at those maps over there, you can think about if you've biked through the area, how does that feel to you? Or if you wanted to bike through the area, what would you need to make that feel more comfortable? And then we have pedestrian level of traffic stress. So this methodology at a national level just came out about a year ago, or less than a year ago, actually. Some states have kind of come up with their own methodologies, but this one was released sort of for national use. And it's very similar to the bicycle one with levels 1 through 4. Again, the level 1 being suitable for all ages and abilities. Very few challenges in that scenario. Level of stress 2 might be suitable for adults with some mobility disabilities and older children. And then we get to the level of stress 3. That's more of an able-bodied adult. And level of stress 4, that would be more like, most people are really not going to be comfortable there. That might be like walking along the side of a road without any sidewalk. So basically, in general, like the higher traffic volume, the higher traffic speed there is, the more separation you need to feel comfortable from that traffic. So we applied that methodology to our project area. You see more lines because we have one line for each side of each road for sidewalks or lack of sidewalks on each side. We see a little more green in this map because we have some separation with those sidewalks along the north side of Grand and the overpasses themselves. But you see a lot of red here, so there's red where there's no sidewalk, or when your sidewalk is at the back of curb and close to traffic. That might also turn up as a red. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell, and I think back to Mike, I think. Thanks.
All right, so then one of the last components here is the Iowa River Dam or Burlington Street Dam. And part of our study, again, is going to be looking at the possibility or feasibility of even being able to modify or remove that structure. Right now, there's some existing safety hazards. It's not passable for fish or watercraft, catches debris, but it provides critical pool head for the water plant and the power plant, and it helps with flood mitigation. So we're taking kind of all of these things into account as we look at the possibility of that. And I guess with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to direct people that are on the Zoom call. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. We have people who are monitoring that chat, so go ahead and put your questions there. That's going to take a minute for them to type, so I'm going to open it to the room. If you just want to raise your hand with a question, say it out loud. I'll repeat it into the mic just for the good of our Zoom people, and then we'll get that question answered. So does anyone in the room have a question?
Would you mind going back to that last slide? I don't quite have time to read it.
So the first question was just to move back to the last slide about the Iowa River Dam. Did you have a specific question, or you just wanted to read it a little bit more closely?
So my question pertains to like permitting and watershed management. With the development of this bridge and what you're going to have to do to the river, what do you have in store for like watershed management along Riverway or in this particular area?
So the question was related to permitting and watershed management and the plans for the Iowa River Dam. So I'm going to pass that to you first.
Sure. Yeah, our goal with the bridge is to achieve a no-rise. And we'll be looking at impacts to all the hydraulics, again, the feasibility of even being able to remove or modify it or how that changes the water surface elevation. But we'll go through all of the normal permits through the DNR, all the environmental permits as well for any of those effects. So we're weighing all of that, I guess, as we consider some potential options of that even being a possibility.
So like later on down the road, you'll have kind of a better understanding
Correct.
of that?
Yeah, and we'll be developing some concepts after we kind of take in a lot of the comments here. And then once we advance some of those concepts, that'll take some of that into account. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, in the back.
Yeah, can you talk about what strategies look like for removing a dam but keeping the water levels where they need to be? Like, are there examples regionally where that's been done successfully? What does it look like?
So the question was, what does it look like to have the river dam removed? Are there any examples in the region?
Yeah, I think one of the examples that we were actually involved with, same with our partners, McLaughlin Whitewater. This is kind of their specialty. That's kind of what they do. I know they worked with us in the Des Moines Water Trails project, and we had some partial dam removals. So considering all the effects upstream, downstream, how that changes the waterscape, how that changes the pool elevation, safety, all of these things kind of weigh in. And then hydraulics, right? How does that affect flood management, all of these other things? So I guess it's possible, we've done it before, and I guess we have the right teaming partners to be able to look at that. And I guess McLaughlin Whitewater also conducted the previous study that looked at this exact dam and that feasibility. So.
Please go ahead and raise your hand if you have any other questions. Yes, go ahead.
My concern is when the Burlington Street Bridge is being worked on, everybody is going to be taking Iowa Avenue to be able to get across and stuff. That needs to be fixed. First, that area where you're going under the railroad tracks, it really narrows down to where there's supposed to be 2 lanes, but like you can't have 2 buses going east and 2 buses going west and be able to go under. One has to go in the middle and take up both lanes, or if you got a big SUV or something, and that's a prone area for crashes and stuff. Everybody's gonna be going that way while this the bridge is being worked on. That needs to be fixed first so that there's 4 regular sized lanes. Don't you think that should be fixed first?
The question was about concerns about Iowa Avenue while Burlington Bridge is undergoing construction.
Yeah, I can start with this one, but our bridge options and I guess our construction options for the Burlington Street Bridge is kind of dependent on bridge type. Might have traffic, or probably will have traffic detours, but it just kind of depends on options, whether it's closed and a full detour route is there, or if it's kind of phased and left open. Still kind of up in the air at the moment since we don't really have a concept of what the bridge would be.
Talking about under those tracks where it goes from like being this wide down to this and then back out again after you go under it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if any future project with that area is on the books, but I know traffic detours and how we get transit and other vehicles that might have clearance issues on Iowa Avenue will be considered.
I'm going to ask the Zoom. Kim, are there any Zoom questions that we should answer?
No questions yet.
Great. Okay, I'll go back to the room in person. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have questions.
Kristen, we actually do have some on the Zoom Q&A. I don't know if Kim can't see them.
Yeah, go ahead and read one, Julie.
Our first one, I guess it's more of a comment than a question. I don't agree with the bike stress level. It is much more stressful on Riverside Drive between Burlington and Iowa Ave. It is very unsafe with pedestrian and bike share. With pedestrian and bikes sharing the sidewalk, the road is not a real option. I would like to see a bike pedestrian crosswalk signal at Museum Drive.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. I see our bike person nodding her head and not surprised by that comment, so thank you. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, as far as the stress level on the trail, I think like I said, our methodology came up saying that it was a green, but I know that does get really close to the road, and when you add in, like the commenter said, pedestrians and bikes together, that's not factored into the methodology. So when you start adding in that mix of people walking and people biking, like I said, that's not factored in, so that's when we need this type of feedback, so we can be like, oh yeah, there's more going on here than what this methodology is revealing. So yeah, thank you.
What's the next comment?
Okay, so the next one is a comment question combo. So, as the director of the Stanley Museum of Art, I'm thrilled that this project, when complete, will make pedestrian and bike access to the museum from the west much easier and safer. In the shorter term, I'm concerned with how this very big project will impact nearby buildings in terms of access and even possible flooding. They would love to know more about the length of the project.
Sure. So we can speak to the length. We do have ongoing other stakeholder meetings, actually that involve all the facilities in the project area to better understand their operations, see how they receive deliveries, how their employees access the building, how visitors access the building, and accommodate that through construction. I think overall the project timeline for construction would kind of vary depending on bridge type, depending on how it's phased during construction. So I could give a time range, but it kind of depends on how the concept is. So we'll have a better idea on that, I guess, at the next public meeting once we start putting pen to paper.
Does anyone have a room comment, an in-person room comment or question? Yeah, go ahead.
How would you assess fish populations after a dam modification or dam removal, especially fish species that are highly dependent on high flow?
The question, if you could just repeat the question for the people.
Oh, the question was asked about how potential dam removal would impact fish species and then access to the fishing area. Perfect. So recreation, I guess, is one of the components that we're looking at for feasibility. Overall, I think we have an objective to try and get better access to the river with this project. So hopefully increased access for fishing opportunities there. And then for removal, as I talked about that project before, full removal may or may not even be an option, but we look at partial removal, how that, again, affects water flow, and I know fish are pretty dependent on velocity, so looking at any type of fish ladder or fish bypass or how that affects the fish population, we have our environmental experts on the team as well that consider that.
Do we have another Zoom comment? Go ahead.
We do, okay. When waiting for the light on the west end of the westbound bridge, I have felt it, quote unquote, bounce many times over the years. Will this new bridge bounce?
You're waiting at like a stop sign and you feel it shaking.
Yeah. So the question that was asked is, as you're heading westbound, you can feel the bridge vibrator bounce. And I can say with some structural background that that's normal. The frequency of the bridges, you'll feel it a little bit. It's supposed to move. That's kind of how the physics of that works, I guess. But yes, I guess if there's a bridge, you'll feel some movement.
Is there another Zoom question?
Is there an estimated completion date for the project yet?
So again, the question was, is there an estimated completion date for the project? And right now it's in the planning study. Our planning study will take us all the way to the end of the year where we would advance to design. So basically at the end of 25, kind of early part of 26 is when this planning study would wrap up. Then it would go to design, might be about a 2-year design process, and then construction would start thereafter. So just rough time frame, again, kind of depends on which concepts are chosen, and that would affect time.
Do we have another Zoom question?
We do, okay. There's a couple on here, so.
Sure.
If people in the audience have questions, raise your hand so we don't miss them. Are there other commuter options being looked at during construction, like the use of local rail commuter option, parking shuttles, or anything else to reduce city center traffic?
The question was, are other commuter options being looked at during construction? And what I can say again is just in the very early planning stages, we know we're going to have to address commuter traffic, how we're getting people through the area. We'll be looking at delays with each different concept type, and have even had some initial conversations about partnering with transit agencies for ways to get people across. So it is being considered. That will heavily be considered with each option type for delays and just how we get people through the area.
If we don't have any room questions, we'll take a Zoom question.
Right now, this is our last one on Zoom that we have. It's concerns about the dam removal as well. So they said, what effect will removing the dam have on the Iowa rowing team? I don't know if the university would have comments on that.
Sure, yeah. Within our study scope, we're looking at recreation as a component. Obviously, safety is a component. Hopefully removing the dam will make it safer for the Iowa rowing team, but I know they're looking at the pool elevation, how they access the river. So all of that is considered. So if you have additional information, if it's from the rowing team or athletics, let us know the other things to consider as we're in this visioning study.
I'm going to just put a call out for any Zoom questions. If you have any Zoom questions, go ahead and put those in the QA box, but are there any room questions? Okay.
I suppose I just want to make a comment.
Yeah.
That this project is very clearly needed for the community in a bunch of different ways. It's exciting to see that it's coming to fruition. We have a great team of engineers from the city working on it. Just kind of excited to see it kind of get started.
Wonderful. Appreciate that feedback. Thanks.
Any final Zoom questions? Okay. Well, I'll take I guess I have a computer right in front of me. Just kind of swinging back through our presentation. Just a reminder of that project schedule. We will have another public meeting spring, summer timeframe, so you will hear from us again. There will be concepts and more information because we've gathered public feedback. We've done some more analyses, and then we'll continue on with that process through environmental documentation through 2026. So if you do have a question, we're not just taking comments and questions today. There's contact information up on the screen. Justin Harland, who you all met at the beginning of the presentation, is available at any time. At the meeting today, we have the scroll maps up front. We have boards in the back where we're asking for input on multimodal information. We also have a survey that we'd like you to take, and that also applies to those of you on the Zoom chat. We have a survey asking you questions about your experience and concerns. Julie will go ahead and put that in the chat so you have a link to that. Please take that. We do read and look at all feedback. And just to kind of end it there, thank you all for your time. Have a wonderful evening.